In this week's Parsha, we encounter one of the episodes in which Klal Yisrael, which the Jewish nation, complains about their situation in the desert. And the Torah describes the situation in a vague term. It says the Am was kimisonim. They were like misonim. And this term misonim is a source of machlokas amongst Rishonim, dispute about exactly what it means. The Ramban explains that the Jews were traveling for 3 days. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't know where their next meal was going to come from. It was hot. It was uncomfortable. And they were complaining. Misonim means they were complaining. They were in pain. They were overwhelmed. They were full of anxiety. And so they complain. And he continues and he says the Torah describes as kimitonim, like mitonim, like complainers, because they actually were understandable. It was understandable that they were complaining in the situation that they were in. It was a difficult situation. It was painful. It was uncomfortable. It was overwhelming. But if that's the case, then it brings up an obvious question. Then why were they punished? Why were they taken to task for complaining? So Ramban continues and says that although they were in a situation that was difficult and uncomfortable and painful, but Hashem expected them to rise above it on the count of the fact that He had done for them so much chesed until now. And I think from this Ramban, we could gain some perspective and take some important lessons for the current situation. We are currently in unprecedented times. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. With all that's going on, it's very easy to get overwhelmed and get nervous and full of anxiety. You really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And often what happens is when we get down on ourselves and we get overwhelmed and we get nervous, we kind of kick ourselves for getting down. We know these ideals of Gamzul Tova, everything's for the best, exist, and we try to live up to those ideals even if it's not realistic. And the first thing I think we could take from this Ramban is that it's understandable. It's okay to be overwhelmed sometimes. It's okay to get anxious about the situation, especially in a situation like we're in right now. It's completely understandable. But on the other hand, from this Ramban, we could see that the Torah provides the antidote for anxiety and overwhelming situations like we're in right now. Hashem expected Klal Yisrael, the Jews, to be able to come out of the situation by falling back, looking back on the chesed that He had provided for them until now. He had taken them out of Mitzrayim, took them out of Egypt. Tons of miracles. He split the Yam Suf, split the sea. He protected them until now in the desert. And He expected that even though they were in a difficult situation, they could look back and say, but Hashem has been there until now, and He'll continue to be there for us now. Now it's interesting to note that Hashem had also promised Klal Yisrael multiple times. He promised the Jews on many occasions that He was going to take them from Egypt, from Mitzrayim, to Eretz Yisrael. He had made a promise to them. And not only that, He had promised Avraham Avinu too. He promised our forefather Avraham that He was going to take us to Israel. But that's not what He brings up when He's holding Klal Yisrael, holding the Jews accountable. He doesn't bring up the fact that He had promised them and say to them, well, you should have trusted me when I made a promise. All He's bringing up is the fact that He had provided them chesed. He had been there for them over the past several weeks. And I think it's very important to note that. Because the Chovos HaLevavos, in his Shar B'Tachon, when he discusses trusting in Hashem, in his 3rd chapter, he lists 7 factors that we need to focus on and see that they exist in Hashem in order to strengthen our trust in Hashem. And amongst those factors are knowing that Hashem cares for us, knowing that Hashem knows what's best for us, knowing that Hashem is able to provide what's best for us, knowing that Hashem has promised to take care of us. Also, one of the 7 is looking back on our history, our personal history, and seeing the times that Hashem has been there for all of us. And I think from this Ramban, we can see that the most powerful of all 7 of these factors is the history, knowing that Hashem has done for us in the past, seeing the times that Hashem has been there for us in our lives. And that's why that is the focus of Hashem's holding the Klal Yisrael accountable, was that they should have been able to fall back on the history that He has with them, on the times that He has been there for them. And the reasoning why I think this is the most important factor, or the strongest way for us to have trust in Hashem, is because all the other factors are intellectual. They make sense, but they're intellectual. We know them to be true. This one is, we lived it. You can't compare knowing something to living something. Knowing something to having experienced something. We experienced the chesed of Hashem. He was there for us until now. What's going to change tomorrow? Why won't He be there for us tomorrow? And although we don't have the level of the experience that Klal Yisrael had in the Midbar, we don't have the unbelievable miracles that they saw in the chesed of Hashem that they had, but we all, in our own personal lives, have experienced some level of chesed of Hashem. And we just have to look back in our lives and find those times where it was obvious that Hashem was there for us, and focus on those times. And we could focus on the history of Hashem being there for us in the past, the chesed, the kindness that Hashem has done for us, even on small scales. That will help propel us to have bitachon, to trust in Hashem, even in the situations that are so trying and difficult and overwhelming. Have a good Shabbos.